Hi guys, welcome to Book Time. My name is Julia. Today I am doing like an overview of my bookshelves inspired by Adam over at Memento Mori, because recently he did a video after his return to BookTube about, he started a series called about books as physical objects, and what the first thing he talked about was bookshelves and how he stores his books, how he organizes them, gets rid of them, collects them, that sort of thing. And a bunch of people have done their own overview videos inspired by his. So I thought I would too, considering I have recently reorganized or started reorganizing my bookshelves, and was thinking of doing a video like this anyway. So I thought I'd jump on the train. I'm going to show you my main shelf first, so I'll cut to that. Okay, so this is my main bookshelf that contains all my fun reading. So it's mostly fiction, there is a bit of non-fiction, my classics and middle grade. I'll show you closer up. The reason that, so this particular bookshelf, the reason that the TV's on it is that my husband built this bookshelf for us, and he designed it to fit in our old house, which had it was a 1-bedroom apartment, and it had a little space where the TV went, but it also, he wanted to put these built-in shelves in, like this whole unit. So he built it to fit our previous home, but we really liked the unit, so we've kept it, even though it kind of looks funny to have the TV in front of books. But there are shelves behind the television, which is great because you can put ugly books back there that don't look as good. So basically this, these top few shelves are my Australian fiction. So I've read basically all of that. Then the next one down is sort of North American fiction. So this is all like Canadian and USA. And then over here is mostly my American non-fiction and a couple of YA because they didn't fit anywhere else. Oh, and up here I've got UK fiction and non-fiction as well. Then down here I've got sort of my Scottish books, or some of my Scottish books, and then some of my middle grade, like my particularly pretty middle grade hardcover ones, behind those little blocks. And then down the bottom is mostly translated work, those ones down there. Then back on this side I've got my classics just here, not all of them, but most of them. And then behind is a mix of Aussie non-fiction, other stuff that doesn't fit, so like plays and some poetry. And down here I've got, there's Harry Potter and some other kids fiction. I suppose, so the main reason I recently rearranged this main shelf is because it was becoming such a schmozzle. I had it organised into read and unread, and then within each, like within read and within unread, I had it divided up by the same category, so Aussie, North American, UK, Scottish, translated works, etc. The reason that wasn't working for me is because every time I read a book, I would have to shelve it on the other side of the bookshelf, and it became too complicated to rearrange the entire bookshelf every time I read a book. And then of course I'd be filming lots of booktube videos, and so I just had piles and piles of books around here for when I was recording videos, and then I would struggle to slot them back into my shelves, let alone when I had a haul. Even if it was just 1 or 2 books, I would really struggle to slot them back in the correct order or spot. And so I just ended up randomly shoving books and piling them anywhere I could on that shelf, also on the desk behind me, which is still a mess, but I've since cleared it of all the book piles, which is good. And because of that, the bookshelf, in the room where the bookshelf is, which is our living area, my kids' toys and stuff are there. And so often if they're playing with something, like if they get their hands on something they're not supposed to, we would just chuck it out of reach on the bookshelf. And so it ended up with all this junk just like shoved into it, and I couldn't handle it anymore. It became very stressful to look at, especially when I was trying to decide what to read, or even when we were watching TV, because in the evenings, you know, if we're sitting down to watch some TV, the books are like staring me in the face as well. And I was like, oh, this is so gross and disorganized. So my cousin and I reorganized it. I still don't understand how someone like Adam or Britta as well, they organize alphabetically, but their shelves look so much neater than mine. So I don't know how they do that, but regardless, my shelf looks a lot better than it did before, and I'm feeling a lot more organized, and I've left some space on it too for when I want to integrate new books. Also, I'm going to cut to the next bookshelf, which is kind of a messy one, which is a bit of a mess. Down the bottom, those bottom two shelves are all my husband's architecture books because he's an architect, and we've got cookbooks, some like dictionaries and other stuff up the top. Eventually what we'd like to do with this is go through our cookbooks, work out which ones we don't need, maybe go through like my coffee table size books, my husband's architecture books, all the other stuff. There's like junk on this shelf as well, and clear that out and make that a lot neater. It's also got a lot of my old Batman comics. I used to really love comics. I mean, I still like them, but I don't buy them anymore, and they probably don't need to be on that shelf. So we'd like to go through that one. I've got fantasy stuff separate because I have a big fantasy collection from when I was a teenager, so that has its own basically entire bookshelf. And then here to my right, I have my university bookshelf, which is looking a bit sparse at the moment because I've reorganized. So I'm writing my PhD on gender in Cormac McCarthy's fiction. I've got all my Cormac McCarthy novels, so I've got his entire set of novels as well as his screenplays and plays, everything he's written. I've got a bunch of academic books about feminism and gender and affect, and a bunch of academic I've also got a bunch of academic books about like the American West and Westerns, cowboy novels, because a lot of his books are about that. I also have a lot of books about masculinity and violence, a lot of literary journals, and then down the very bottom here I've got a random collection of old books that really sadly, so the English department at my university used to have their own library, and it got shut down, and so they sold like anything that couldn't go to the main university library that was in duplicate or they didn't want, they got sold for really cheap, like $2 a book or something. And I bought a whole bunch of books, mostly around Scottish novels, so a lot of stuff on Robert Burns. A lot of stuff on Robert Burns basically, and a lot of American stuff, a lot of stuff on Hemingway as well. So that's that shelf. I've also got like folders here containing PhD drafts and things like that. So that's this shelf. I also have a lot of boxes of books in our storage room. We have a storage room basement thing under our house. So I think there are a lot of my own childhood books in there still. So a lot of children's and middle grade fiction. I think probably a lot of novels and literature magazines that I probably just need to sort through and work out what I actually want to keep and what I don't need. So yeah, I like organizing alphabetically because it's the easiest way to find things. I don't really like splitting up authors' work, so I wouldn't want to organize by book size or color or, you know, other categories that people might. Some people really like organizing that way, but I like the idea of authors' work being together and being able to find everything easily. So that's why I organize alphabetically. I definitely like having my fiction split up by country, or at least I like having my Australian fiction separate because I make a big effort to read a lot of Aussie fiction and I like to see it all together. And it kind of gives me a good overview if I'm like, oh, I've got loads of women writers, or I don't have enough writers of colour, or, you know, highlights the gaps, I guess, in my Aussie fiction, which is probably my priority in terms of my reading. And that's why I have read nearly all of the Aussie fiction that I own, whereas with the American stuff, I've probably only read half. And that's just because I prioritise Australian fiction. The other thing Adam talked about was how he gets rid of books, and he has a really good system. I liked it. I think he said every 6 months he just goes through and works out what books he doesn't want to keep and gives them away, or I don't know, gets rid of them somehow. I have just done a big unhaul, which I had a video of, so I'll link that down below. And I got rid of about 30 books, which I was really pleased about. Probably, I don't mind owning lots of books I haven't read, but I don't really like having books that I eventually work out that I'm probably never going to get around to. So yeah, these were books that I just knew that I wasn't going to prioritize, or that I had read and didn't enjoy. Yeah, if I know if I've read a book and know I will definitely not read it again, I will probably give it away. Often I'll give it to a friend and be like, when you finish it, pass it on, because there are a lot of books that I like and they were fine, but I probably don't need to have them, and those ones I'll give to a friend and get them to pass it on. Stuff that I really didn't like, I'll probably just donate to a secondhand store. But I think I'd like to do that more often, because currently what I do is just every couple of years have a panic that I have too many books, like I did recently, not just too many books, but too many books all over my house in no type of order. And so then I do a big organization, get rid of a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm feeling good about it at the moment, but I would like to maybe do it a bit more regularly. Yeah, that's how I get rid of books. And I suppose in terms of accumulating books, I buy books when I want to. Often when I feel sad, I'll buy books to cheer myself up. But these days, I'm trying not to buy so many books, mostly because of the space issue. And I just don't like accumulating them at a rate faster than I'm reading them, if that makes sense. So as long as I'm reading books or giving away books